I'm sure it's no secret to you that customer service is terrible today. I'm sure all of you have horror stories of how you've been treated at gas stations, you've been trashed at grocery stores, you've been stomped on at car dealerships, department stores and shopping malls have treated you shabbily. And these are businesses that at least theoretically are supposed to make a profit. Hopefully, these poor examples of customer service realize that we can take our money elsewhere. And you'd think that that would motivate these companies to at least worry about the service they give. But if you think that's bad, well, it gets worse. The customer service nightmare gets really ugly when we consider organizations that are a monopoly, that we have to deal with whether we want to or not. For example, have you worked with your friendly local utility company or phone company lately? Or how about dealing with City Hall or the ultimate monopoly, the federal government? Prospect kind of makes you shudder, doesn't it? And yet, as we discussed earlier in this program, there's one place where it's even worse to get bad customer service, and that's in your home, the haven where you should feel safe and secure. So this audio tape series, Service on the Homefront, a Manual for Managers, is really a call for change because, unfortunately, some of the worst service anywhere today happens when frontline employees work in customers' homes, and it has to stop. Bad service in the home has to stop and be changed for our company's sake, for our customers' sake, for the sake of our employees, and for ourselves as owners and managers. You see, it's that time now in our program to talk about that dreaded C word, change. And I'll warn you right up front that when a manager or owner attempts to introduce change into his or her organization, well, that manager will definitely win the least popular on campus award from their employees. And this is true no matter how much the proposed changes will benefit the company and the workers. The simple fact of the matter is that most employees hate change, and they find it incredibly stressful in their life. So, am I saying not to focus on customer service changes in your company? Absolutely not. Implementing customer service systems in your company will eventually bring tremendous, incredible results that you can't even visualize how good they'll be. But those changes will be hard. Even your best, most well-meaning employees will resist you with what I call passive inertia. You've already encountered this passive inertia, this resistance in your career as a manager. Think back. You waltz into the office and you're fresh from a seminar and you're just bursting with new ideas. But something's wrong here. Everyone else doesn't seem as excited as you are. In fact, your workers, your employees, your staff, well, they're downright unenthusiastic about these changes. In fact, they view your new vision as just more work for them. So your employees, they don't refuse to do what you ask. That'd be insubordination. But you know how they fight back? It just doesn't get done. One manager that encountered this attitude toward Homefront service changes, well, he confided to me one evening. He says, "Steve, it's just like swimming in cold molasses." And I'll guarantee to you right now that when you start service engineering your company, you too are going to be flailing along swimming in cold molasses, at least initially. And you know, we can't blame just our employees for this resistance we encounter. Outside events also factor in. In fact, one of my favorite expressions is, there's the important and there's the urgent, and they're seldom the same. You see, all too often we focus on the petty details of business, and we live in the comfortable little rut that we've carved out for ourselves. And then if we get a little bored in this comfortable rut, what I call the comfort zone, Well, then we'll deal with a few urgent problems. In fact, if you're like most managers I know, you can probably fill an entire week or month dealing with petty details and fixing just the urgent problems of your business. I know I certainly can. But the problem is that the entire time we're living in this comfortable routine, this comfortable rut, we're likely ignoring the really important part of our job as managers. In fact, you've heard, haven't you, what the classic definition of a rut is? It's just a grave with both ends kicked out. So don't wind up in a business grave, because if you do, our energies get sapped. We get tired, we get exhausted, and we lose our focus on the important area of customer service. And what saps us? All these urgent problems of day-to-day business and living in the comfort zone, that business grave. Now, another reason why change is so hard: you're only human. And you know what? It's tough on you physically and mentally to institute change. Plain old physical and mental exhaustion on your part is going to slow down the very best customer service changes. So not only our employees, but the urgent problems of the day and our own exhausted old bodies can act as this cold molasses that we wind up having to swim through. Well, are you getting depressed? Are you getting exhausted just thinking about everything you're facing with customer service changes? Don't be exhausted. My purpose in this message is to get you charged up, excited, and reinvigorated on customer service. I want you to be so motivated, so pumped up, that when you hit resistance to your customer service changes, you're going to go through it like a hot knife through butter. I want you to be like that crazy newsman in the movie Network. And you remember when he's leaning out the window of the skyscraper screaming, "I'm mad as heck and I'm not going to take it anymore." Well, I want you to have that same anger. I want you to be just as mad. Not mad at yourself, not mad at your employees or your customers, and I certainly don't want you mad at me. But I want you to get angry. I want you to get angry at business as usual. I want you to get really mad at business just being good enough. Because you know what? Good enough isn't anymore. Good enough won't cut it in business. Our customers deserve, and frankly, our customers demand more from us than just a complacent attitude of, well, it's good enough. Now, my job is to motivate you. And scientists have known for years that the only real way to motivate someone to make difficult changes is to prove that it's in their best interest to change. In other words, all of us, when we face tough changes, ask the same question our customers ask: what's in it for me? So here, in no particular order, are my 7 answers to your question: if I go through the brutal changes needed to service engineer my company, what's in it for me? Well, here they are. What's in it for you? Number 1, complete, absolute, total freedom from competition. Reason number 2, both you and your business are going to make a lot more money. Reason number 3, customer service changes will bring your overhead down. You'll save a lot of money on overhead. Reason number 4, you will attract and keep better employees. Reason number 5, if you focus on customer service, your business will be worth a lot more if and when you decide to sell it. Reason number 6, kind of an odd one, but it's a valid point nonetheless: giving good customer service is the right thing to do. And reason number 7, and this is my favorite, it's just a whole lot more fun running a business when its culture is built around giving great customer service. Now, that's a whole lot of motivation, isn't it? But you know what? You're going to need every bit of the encouragement I can ladle out to you on this side of the tape when you have to start flailing your way through all that cold molasses of passive resistance and inertia from your employees. So let's examine each of these 7 motivational points of what's in it for you in changing and becoming a customer-focused organization. Point number 1. Do you remember when I asked you at the very start of our taped series about your competition? Do you remember how we decided it was crushing, it was bruising? Sometimes I feel like screaming at my competitors when I was in the Homefront business, "Don't you have anything better to do than run around trying to steal my customers?" Well, let me suggest a better, more productive course of action than screaming insults at your competition. Let me ask you a question. If you could, would you like to build a fortress, an impregnable wall with pointed stakes all around your customers, and nobody could get in to steal them? Your competition would just beat their head against this wall, and they'd never steal one of your customers. No matter how cheap, no matter what inducements they offered your customers, they would not bail out on you. Now, wouldn't that be neat? Having customers stay in safety. These customers would have incredible loyalty, and no amount of price cutting, no amount of special offers could wean them away from your company. In fact, these customers that are inside this wall, they would actually be offended because they're so passionately loyal to you, they would be offended that another company would try to lure them away from you. And even better, not only would these customers stay loyal themselves, but these faithful clients will actually become actively involved in selling your services to new customers, increasing your market share at no direct cost to you. Does that sound good? Would you like to do that? Well, you see, that's what customer service changes, Homefront service concepts bring to your company. And no matter what happens, the technology can change, economies change, your local market can change, you're going to have complete, absolute security and freedom from competition. And why? Because your customers always want the very best in service, and they're convinced that your company is the one to give it to them. Now, you're saying, hey, that sounds good, but be a little more specific. Well, I can buy into that. Now, how does Homefront service bring this security from competition to your company? Well, I don't know if you've ever thought about it this way before, but every business tries to set itself apart, to build a wall around its customers. In fact, when you think about your company, you know what you're constantly asking yourself, whether you realize it or not? You're saying, what can make me different from all my competitors? Because do you remember how we just decided that when you face a change, you ask yourself, what's in it for me? We see the customer asks himself the same thing every time when they go to the yellow pages to find someone to work in their home. They're constantly asking, what's in it for me? Why should I call one company over another company? So whether they realize it or not, business managers are always wildly searching, flailing for that magic something, that holy grail that's going to set their operation apart from their competition, anything to make them different from their competitors. I call this the search for differentiation. What makes my business different? No, not just different, better than my competitors. And if you don't believe that you're better than your competition, maybe you're in the wrong business. Maybe you shouldn't even be in business for yourself. Because let's be honest, shouldn't we think, shouldn't we know, shouldn't we passionately know in our heart that we're the best? That's easy. But you see, it doesn't really matter what you think about your business. It doesn't matter what you think about your abilities. It doesn't even matter what your competitor thinks about you either. What's important is what your customer thinks about you. What's important is the opinion of your customer and your prospective customer. and the unique characteristics that set businesses apart in your consumers' minds, that form your client's opinion of you, those characteristics are called differentiators. And in the big picture, there's only two different types of differentiators, two ways to set your business apart to make it different from everybody else. The first type is a concrete differentiator, and that's what's most common today. And of these concrete differentiators, how do most business people try to set themselves apart from their competitors? Well, it's the same one that every one of your competitors uses today, is my guess. You got it. Money. Cheap, 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 cheap pricing. Undercut the other guy. And I have to admit, you don't get a much more concrete and easy, simple way to try to distinguish yourself from your competition than cheap prices. But there's an obvious problem with this idea of always being the cheapest guy in town. And my guess is you're way ahead of me here, but let me illustrate with the example of a house painter. Now let's say you're a house painter and you decide to drum up business by running large newspaper ads. And these ads trumpet out in huge numbers that you're going to paint any living room, dining room, and all for $199.95. Custom colors, slight additional charge. And guess what? The calls roll in. You're busy, you hire more staff, and you say, this is great. You're buying paint by the 55-gallon drum. You buy more equipment. You send your kids off to a private school. And you even buy a new house. You say, this is fantastic. I've discovered the secret to marketing. I just price my services cheaper than anybody else, and I'm a success. But what happens? All of a sudden, old Joe, your competition, well, Joe's custom house painting is not going to stand around and let you run them into the ground because you're advertising cheap prices. And Joe, he's a good painter, but he's not that smart a guy. He's not a real business person. What's he do? He says, I'll beat him at his own game. And all of a sudden, a big ad shows up in the paper right next to yours. $189.95 paints any living room, dining room, and hall. Slight additional charge for custom colors. What? That ad even looks like yours. It's got the same type style. It's got the same layout. Even got that same cute little paintbrush. What happens? Well, see, there's just one big difference between Joe's ad and yours. His price is $10 less. And your phone is dead. You don't get a call. You keep picking up the phone and checking to make sure it's got a dial tone. Maybe the lines have been cut. Nothing's happening. The office is deserted. Well, those dirty, disloyal, rotten customers, how could they do that to you? But wait a minute. Can you really blame your customers? Who trained them? Who set the benchmark as to how your customers are to judge quality paint and painters from lower quality painting companies? You did, because the only way you set yourself apart from your competition was by price. And if all you've built your reputation on is being the cheapest painter in town, well, don't get upset if the customer bails out on you for some new kid on the block. It's $10 cheaper. After all, your customer is playing by the rules you set up. After all, in the scenario I just described, you got your customers by undercutting someone else's prices, and you took their customers away from them. Well, as the scripture states, he who lives by the sword will die by the sword. So you see, someone can always do it, or at the very least advertise they'll do it cheaper than you can. Now, I'm not saying that you need to be the highest priced service in town, even though I will tell you that can be a very nice market niche to fill if you position yourself properly. But if we're down slugging it out on price with every slimy, lowball competitor in our market, not only does it screw up our bottom line profits, it also messes with our mind. It screws up our thinking. Because that way, when we don't get a certain job with this concept of cheap pricing, what happens? Well, we say, well, I guess I must have charged that job too high. I wrote the estimate too high. Nah, you didn't write the estimate too high. You didn't charge too much. More likely, your competitor charged too little. Your competitor set the price too low and is not going to make money, is going to do a bad job, and even worse, is going to erode the confidence of your community and your entire industry. So don't let your company get trapped in this dead-end street of always trying to be cheaper than the other guys. It doesn't work. This concrete differentiation of low pricing is almost always universally a bad idea. In fact, to be honest with you, especially when we're dealing with the customer's pride and joy, their home, I'm continually amazed at how little low pricing really matters to the customer. Now, we operated a residential services company in a very competitive market for 16 years, and we were 40 to 60% more expensive than any of our competition, and yet we did more work than all of them combined. Now, selling on the home front is outside our theme in this course of customer service. But if you're continually losing jobs and the customer is consistently saying, you're too high, well, then you're maybe not too high. You're just not giving the customer the reasons to justify your higher price in your sales presentation. Now, certainly low price is the knee-jerk way most service businesses try to differentiate themselves. But there's other concrete differentiators, and they have their problems too. For example, if you advertise you're going to do a certain job in 10 minutes, well, guess what? Somebody sure as heck is going to come in and say, this is Joe's 9-minute service job. And what happens? For the sake of 1 minute, the customer's going to bail out on you because you set a concrete differentiator for them to judge you by. If you advertise 31 flavors, someone else will say 39 flavors. If you go out and advertise that you have a 2,000 pound per square inch pressure washer, well, the next day, someone will have an ad in the paper saying, we have a 3,000 pound pressure washer. And so it goes on and on and on. So we need some other way to set ourselves apart, a reason for the customer to buy from just us that no competitor can copy, a reason that is ours alone. The differentiators that we want are emotional differentiators. And the main emotional differentiator is, you guessed it, customer service. And what do I mean by that? An obsessive attention to the wants and desires of your customers transmitted throughout your entire organization. Now, it's true, your competition, they're going to try to match your high level of service, but they won't. And you know why? Because it's hard. Your competition very probably does not have the willpower. It's gut-wrenching, deep down hard to change an organization around to a culture of customer service. And there's one other reason why your competition is never going to match you. Probably they don't have this course. Now, I'm just kidding in a way, but in a way I'm not. Because seriously, not one business person in 50 in your industry has any concept of the principles contained in this program. And that's good for you. And what if your competitor does purchase these Homefront service courses? What if they do learn to deliver the same high level of service that you're learning? Well, you know what? Remember the wall around your customers? Your customers are so loyal that they're never going to learn about the great service your competitor is offering. These Homefront service concepts really do offer complete freedom from competition. Your customers will stay with you, and your sharp competitor, the one that also is focusing on service, Well, they're going to take market share away from the weak sister companies in your town, and the general perception of your industry will rise, and both of you are going to prosper. So the first reason for you to buy into customer service is that your business will gain a defining differentiator, this concept of customer service that nobody can take away from you. You truly will have complete freedom from competition, and that feels pretty good. But let's talk about a second reason for you to rattle the cage, so to speak, in your business existence. As the old saying goes, money makes the world go round. And it's a universal fact among all businesses that when a business delivers a high level of perceived service and value to its customers, customers are so starved for good customer service, they will cheerfully pay a premium to your company. They will cheerfully pay more. Now, my guess is that you make a good living, maybe a great living, and your business is probably doing great financially right now. After all, you're able to buy this course, and don't think I don't appreciate it. I really do. But think for a minute of what you could do with more money to grow a better business. Maybe you could hire more mid-level management and quit scrambling around wearing too many hats. Maybe then you could spend some time at home with the family, get to know your neighbors, whatever. You could have a better lifestyle if you had more money to get rid of some of those hats you wear. Or you could buy better equipment. Or maybe you could purchase an office and a shop location instead of throwing your earnings away on rent. There's few things more demoralizing to you, your company, and your employees than constantly being behind the eight ball, groping and scrambling around for more money because you're always behind. So the second reason to change is that when your company is customer-focused, you can charge a lot more for your services and put a lot more of that money into your pocket. Now, a third reason for change and to work on customer service is that it brings our costs and our overhead lower. Keeping overhead and operating costs down is strongly linked to our previous point of business profit. High overhead, low profit. The two go hand in hand. And a high level of service will definitely lower your overhead, your costs. As you focus on customer service, your costs are going to drop throughout your entire organization. But the biggest savings, and the ones I want to focus in on this reason for changing and becoming obsessed with service, is found in your advertising costs. In fact, I think the favorite thing for people to argue about in business is advertising. Where to get the most bang for your advertising dollar. And especially if you're in a larger marketplace, the advertising arguments will just rage and go on and on and on about TV versus radio versus newspaper versus direct mail. Everybody's searching for the perfect advertising medium. Well, let me give you the best advertising media you can find. It's called the GOB network. You say, what's the GOB network? Well, that stands for the Good Old Boy, and I need to add, Girl Network. In fact, there is a tremendous return on customer service by your just tapping into plain old word-of-mouth advertising. Now, if you doubt this, if you doubt the efficiency of the Good Old Boy Network as far as getting more work, just attend a Kiwanis meeting or a Garden Society Club meeting. Or maybe on a Friday afternoon, stop by and visit your local Elks Club. And you're going to hear an incredible amount of good old boy and girl network advertising going on through word of mouth. And these are your cheerleader customers, someone who's out there at no direct cost to you, singing your praises from the rooftops and doing your advertising work for you. Does that sound like a good way to lower your advertising budget? So our third reason to buy into this high level of customer service is that our overhead is lower, and especially our advertising budget has been dramatically cut, and yet we still have the same or even a greater impact in the marketplace. Why? Because you have those customer cheerleaders doing your advertising and your sales for you. Our fourth reason to get on board with these customer service concepts is that you will attract, keep, and maintain a higher quality employee that not only is going to give your customer better service, that also is going to work harder for you, and they'll also make more money for you, but even better, you're going to enjoy associating with these high-quality individuals more on a day-to-day basis. Now, we're going to talk extensively later on in this course about motivating employees. But right now, let's just say that good people want to be on a winning team. And winning teams are founded on this concept of customer service. And as your employees stay on board, they don't leave, they don't get mad and quit. Instead, they stay with you. In fact, they buy in to this team emotionally. Well, then you're going to have greater efficiency, you're going to have more productivity, and a lot less emotional trauma for you. Because doesn't turnover, employees quitting, kind of hit you right between the eyes? Doesn't it hurt your heart? Don't you feel bad, a deep sense of rejection when one of your employees quits? Well, if you're focused on customer service, good people will stay with you longer. And every bit of these financial savings that quality employees give you, they go straight through your organization and put more money on your bottom line. So our fourth reason for change is that you will attract and keep better quality employees. Now, a fifth reason for buying into customer service, it's a long-range one. Because, see, the concepts and procedures that you'll put in place with this focus on customers are going to translate into your business being worth a whole bunch more when you decide to cash in your chips and sell out. Now, a prospective buyer of any Homefront service operation wants to buy more than some worn-out equipment and beat-up trucks. Now, a business buyer can buy that stuff anywhere and probably for a lot less than you're asking in the sale of your business. Trucks are no big deal. Equipment's no big deal. You can get that stuff anywhere. What will make your business extremely valuable, the only two things that add value to any Homefront business, number one, its existing customer base, and number two, the systems you've developed to add to that base. Well, that sounds just like a business that's been service engineered, a business that's been focused on customer service. In fact, that valuable business for sale, that could be your business if you follow the principles in this course. So what's in it for you? With this obsessive commitment to service, you're going to make more money now and later. You'll have complete freedom from competition. You'll be able to charge more. You'll have all these unpaid customer cheerleaders out there singing your praises. Your employees will become more committed, more motivated, and they'll stay with you longer. And finally, when you do decide to sell your business, it's going to be worth a lot more. But remember, we said we had 7 reasons, and so far we've covered only 5 of why you should change. Now I have 2 more reasons for you to start swimming through the cold molasses and making customer service changes in your company. And my 6th and 7th reasons are ones that you might not have expected to hear from a program primarily devoted to making your business more profitable. Reason number 6 to change is a moral reason. That's right. We morally have an obligation to give great customer service. Let me ask you, have you ever made a bad buying decision? You know, one that you just later felt sick about, heart sick, deep down, nauseated, and along with these feelings, well, what happened to you? You felt guilt, resentment, anger. You felt stupid, dumb. And you felt these negative feelings not only at yourself, you felt them at the person and the organization that you bought this service or this item from. Now, as you can probably tell from my vivid description of those feelings, I've made a lot of stupid buying decisions in my life, and it's no fun. So I would submit to you that if we, not by changing our work or our work quality, but by changing how we deliver our work, by changing the systems that our employees use in dealing with the customer, if we can remove some of those bad feelings from our customers, then we have a moral imperative to do so. And as we've already seen from our 5 preceding points, we win when we do that financially, we win other ways, but we also need to win morally. See, it's been well said, we can't change the world. And we can't. None of us individually are going to change the world. But we can change what I call our circle of influence. And that's the people and the organizations that we have contact with every day. We can surround ourselves with quality people, not just with our employees, but also our customers. As we give better service, you know what happens? Our customers become better people because quality people are attracted to quality organizations. So we improve not just our own life, but we also improve the environment of the people we serve, and that is a powerful moral reason to provide a high level of service because it's the right thing to do. And now that I've said that and got that out of my system, I'm going to get off my soapbox and move on to my 7th reason for changing into a customer-focused organization. And this is the point that I really love, maybe because I spent 20 years living it. Business is just plain more fun when you're obsessed, along with a group of quality people, in providing a high level of service. Now, I don't want to get all mushy about this and teary-eyed, but there are few things in life that match the exhilaration, the sheer joy of working with quality people toward a common vision, creating something of value. It is just plain fun. So, are you motivated? Did these 7 reasons get you pumped up to slay the dragon of apathy, to slay that dragon of inertia, that dragon of passive resistance that you're going to encounter in your quest for superb customer service? Do you have the energy now to start punching your way through that cold molasses? I can't imagine a better reason to come to work every day than the 7 reasons we just talked about. Let's review them. Number 1, complete, absolute, total freedom from competition. How? By differentiating yourself with a consistently high level of service. Reason number 2 for change. A very, very profitable business that makes enough net profit to build itself, to pay its employees very nicely, and, oh yeah, we don't want to forget this part, to reward its owners and managers very well. Reason number 3, creating a lean, mean, well-run business that has a very low overhead cost. And especially your advertising budget is much lower than anybody else in your industry. How? By developing these passionately loyal customer cheerleaders. Reason number 4, building a business based not just on superb customer service, but also on the high-quality, long-term employees that your company values have attracted. Reason number 5 to focus on customer service. Every day, you're stashing away money, tax-deferred, by building more equity and value into your company. How are you doing this? By every day developing systems that consistently create customer cheerleaders. Whether you keep the company or not, those systems keep going, and that adds value. Point number 6 on reasons for customer service changes. You're feeling great about yourself, because you've made other people feel good about hiring your company. And you know what? I don't think you can have too many friends, and a customer-led organization is a great way to make friends. And finally, point number 7, it's just a lot more fun running and tinkering with and playing with a business focused on service. When you've made all the money you'll ever reasonably spend, the money game sort of loses its appeal. But the game of customer service can be played on and on because there's always a new goal right around the corner. I'd like to close this message with a quote from a man who played the customer service game with a passion his entire life. And he became very famous for his obsessive commitment to service quality. And this man said, "I always had confidence that as long as we did our work well and were good to our customers, there would be no limit to us." Well, this man's name was Sam Walton. That's right, Sam Walton, the founder of Walmart and Sam's Clubs. And when Mr. Walton died, he and his family had a net worth of over $20 billion. He also had the love and the affection of 400,000 employees, but maybe, most importantly, he had truly created something of value. Most business owners and managers instinctively understand the need for a high level of customer service in their business. They quickly grasp the concept of managing the experience of the customer with your company. And they realize that they're going to benefit both personally and financially from all these customer service ideas. So the logical question to ask is, why is so little attention given to customer service in business today? Well, there's at least 2 reasons for that. One is that service is an emotional, slippery substance. It's what we call an intangible. And secondly, there's what my brother called the constant battle of the important versus the urgent. But first of all, let's think about customer service. Being against customer service? Well, it's sort of like spitting on mom or apple pie. And when we're dealing with customer service, talk truly is cheap. Everybody talks about serving the customer, but very few companies actually do anything about it. Customer service is something it's hard to get a handle on. It's hard to measure. And business people normally are practical individuals. They like tangible projects, projects that have a beginning, projects that you can make readily definable progress on, and then end that project and feel good about it. But customer service, it's not that way. It goes on and on and on. Let me ask you, which appeals to you the most? Shopping for and buying a new forklift, and of course you get to play with it when you get it back to the plant? Or reviewing complaint procedures? Or is it more fulfilling and enjoyable to review the plans for the new plant addition and look at the blueprints, pick out colors, have all that fun? Or to find yourself in yet another evaluation session and you're pleading with old Joe, your oldest employee, "Please, Joe, quit antagonizing the customers." You see, building a culture of service appears to be a quicksand, a bottomless swamp, something with no end in sight ever. And so it's easy to feel like our customer service efforts will just keep sinking deeper and deeper, leading to exhaustion and burnout. And that's why so many people just refuse to focus on customer service. And what do we find business owners doing instead? Well, some of them are like ostriches with their head in the sand. But you know, if we put our head in the sand, we leave something else on the other end exposed to get kicked. And trust me, ignoring service and ignoring the discipline on your part that's required to develop a service culture, you are going to get your other end kicked, and kicked hard. Now, other people, they like to put customer service off, these managers, and they remind me of Scarlett O'Hara in Gone with the Wind, and you know where she looked off in the distance and she says, "I'll think about it tomorrow." And too many managers today procrastinate and think about it tomorrow, and tomorrow never comes when it comes to customer service changes. And other business managers engage in what I call displacement activities. And displacement activities are an incredible reason why customer service is so bad. And all of us, myself included, have been guilty of displacement activities. And that's when we know that we really should be making collection calls, or we really should be doing employee evaluations, or more likely we should really be working on the important action of customer service. But you know, instead, the spark plugs in that truck need to be changed this afternoon. Or, wow, this plant is a pigsty. I'm going to take a couple hours off and really clean it up. Well, you see, it's more fun to do simple, definable activities. After all, they have a beginning and they have an end, and you can get a real sense of accomplishment from displacement activities. Even when I ran a large company, I cut my own firewood. Now, from a financial standpoint, cutting my own firewood was an incredible waste of time, but it really made me feel good. It did great things for my morale. And when that old wood was cut and split and stacked at the end of the day, I felt great. And there's nothing wrong with some displacement activities as a tension reliever, as a break in the day. But don't get carried away. If we don't see them for what they are, displacement activities will lull us into this dangerous sense of security, a false sense of security. Sure, your shop sparkles, or maybe the trucks run great, but the business might be teetering on the edge of bankruptcy. You remember what we talked about, the 3-step life cycle? Complacency, arrogance, bankruptcy. Now see, service engineering your company, it's hard, agonizing work, but it's a sign of maturity on your part to polish the basics of customer service. And even when our displacement activities aren't directly taking time away from building service systems, they might still affect customer service. Why? Because we're going to learn that it's really tough to deliver great service from a marginal, poorly organized company. Now, a dangerous variation of this displacement activity concept, and another reason why customer service is so bad, is this idea of diversification. And it can be a very, very expensive variation. See, you know in a nutshell what the definition is for many service businesses when they say, let's diversify. What they're really saying is, if we're failing at one thing, let's look for something else to fail at. And all it does is wind up costing a whole bunch of money, and even worse, it costs us enormously on our mental focus and our emotional energy. So examine carefully before you decide to diversify your current business. The third reason nothing happens with customer service is that some managers insulate themselves from their customers. And these managers start to view customers as a necessary evil. And when these customers complain, as they probably will with that attitude, it's, don't talk to me about your problems. We have a complaint department for your whining and sniveling. Unfortunately, a complaint department usually is a very reactive, very negative stance on the part of management because they staff it with battered, shell-shocked employees. These employees are beat up on. They become cynical, and the employees engage in this little game. It's a little chess game with customers to give them as little as possible just to get them out of their life. And what happens? They do get out of their life. They leave the company forever. And also, some service companies actually spend up to 30% of their money trying to please unhappy customers. Others should, but they don't. So most service companies wind up insulating themselves from customers and the problems that unhappy customers bring. They stay in their office, and these managers run their business with what I call a high degree of hope, such as in, I sure hope all the customers are going to be happy today, or I hope that nobody gets mad at us today. And of course, then they lead to the next point, which is, if they do complain, I hope I'm not in when the phone call comes, and if I am in, I hope I don't have to talk to them. Well, all these different managerial hopes lead to the last hope of, I hope we have enough money in the checking account to make payroll. So instead of running our business in this reactive management on a high degree of hope, I'm suggesting a proactive stance where the best defense is a good offense. So let's get started on Homefront service. And if you've been listening all along and paying attention, I hope you're excited and inspired by these concepts and you see where they fit into your company. Now, you've probably guessed by now that I am totally, completely, absolutely sold on the benefits of customer service. But now I'm going to really confuse you because I'm going to do a flip-flop here and tell you that customer service engineering isn't for everybody. In fact, a few years ago, I talked for a while with a business owner, and I wound up saying something like this. You know, Joe, maybe you shouldn't leave that nice, comfortable routine you've developed over the years in your business. I think your company's fine just the way it is. Don't change. Now, was I telling the truth? Not really. You know, this business, Joe's business, it desperately needed to change. And yet I recommended that they didn't even start down the customer service engineering path. Why not? Because I saw a lack of commitment on the part of the owner for customer service concepts. And I can't stress enough here the absolute need for your commitment to change if you're going to institute customer service. This positive, obsessive level of attention to detail before you bring it up to your employees or your customers. In fact, the absolute worst thing you can do is to advertise exceptional service, to get up and make a grandiose, eloquent speech and preach it to your employees and then not follow through. Because if you don't follow through, it's just like throwing a brick into a still farm pond. The brick sinks, and the ripples quickly return to a flat surface. And what happens to you? You look ridiculous. And you know there's no worse fate out there for a manager or owner of any business than to appear ridiculous, to lose the respect of their employees. Your employees don't have to like you, even though it's nice if they do. But your employees must respect you. So if you aren't committed to change, if you're not ready to go all the way, then don't even start. And unfortunately, changing into a customer-led company will require more from you than just a personal commitment to change on your part. If you're a typical manager or owner of a Homefront business, likely you've been thinking, hey, this is great stuff, and I'm absolutely committed to change. Now, who can I assign these changes to? Which one of my employees can I delegate this customer service stuff to? Well, guess what? I'm going to say it straight out. It has to be you. You're the one that needs to understand these concepts. You're the one that has to live customer service. You have to become obsessed with service. You have to embody customer service in all aspects of your business and personal behavior. Now, don't misunderstand me. You can't do it alone. And I certainly don't want you to do it alone. Most managers on the home front should delegate more and focus on building teams with this shared customer service vision. But you're the leader. You're the one that has to motivate, has to train and inspire your employees to get started in customer service. And to help you with this, I have a companion series called Winning on the Home Front that's designed to orient your frontline employees build great customer relationships. But you can't just shove a taped program, even one of mine, at your employees and say, listen to this, do it. It just won't happen. The rule for motivating employees is simple. Maybe it's too simple. If you want it to be viewed as important by your employees, it has to be important and be treated as important by you. So how do we show the importance of customer service to our employees? We live it in our life completely, totally, and without reservation. You see, our employees are a lot like our children. You think back to your kids. All of your children were born with what I call an advanced HSD implanted within them. You say, what's an HSD, Steve? Well, HSD is my term for hypocritical sensing device. And don't our children and don't our employees know it when we're being a hypocrite? They just instantly grasp it instinctively. You can't con them. When we're saying something is important, but deep down, we don't mean it. But instead, both with our employees and our children, they need to be trained by example. Now, we don't need to be perfect all the time. Nobody expects that. All of us fail. But consistently, on a routine basis, we need to embody the concepts and the obsession with service that we're talking about in our life. Think about that phrase we just used, a consistent routine. The dictionary defines those words as a harmonious regularity and established procedure. Does that sound like your management style when it comes to motivating your employees? Too many short-sighted managers engage in what I call management by exhortation. And that's where they're constantly haranguing their employees, usually in a high, screaming voice. You've got to try harder. I want you to smile more. Work faster. Well, you see, in study after study, this sort of management behavior is found to be very demotivating to our employees. It's insulting, it's demeaning, and it just doesn't work. Managers that engage in this destructive management by exhortation are usually trying to cover up their lack of personal commitment to the customer. In essence, what they're saying to their employees is, I can fool you. I don't care about the customer. I don't care about customer service, but I can fool you into thinking I do. And I can fool you into using customer service in your life. Employees universally feel cheated and used. They feel manipulated when it becomes apparent to them with their HSD or their hypocritical sensing device that basically their manager is just one big hypocrite. Let me suggest a better way to you. Create within yourself a sense of urgency regarding customer service. Develop within you what the Japanese call netsui. Loosely translated, this phrase means with a passion. Isn't that a lovely term? With a passion. You see, if you work in Japan, that's the highest compliment you can be paid to perform business with netsui, or with a passion, or as a famous book title put it once, a magnificent obsession. That should be our attitude towards customer service. Now, I'm not going to kid you. This attitude can be exhausting at first. Remember that you're going to constantly have the urgent things, the displacement activities, your physical and mental exhaustion constantly trying to steal you away from customer service. But the beauty, the absolute beauty of this obsession and your commitment, your passion, is that eventually it becomes self-sustaining. You become invigorated by other people in your company. They invigorate you. You invigorate them. Or as the Bible puts it, iron sharpens iron. In fact, what you're going to find is that these concepts and these attitudes that you'll exemplify in your life, your good employees are going to just love them. Your mediocre employees, hopefully, they will become inspired and chin themselves on up. And your bad ones, well, your bad employees, you know what's going to happen? They're going to leave. Bad employees hate Homefront service concepts, and that's the best thing that could happen to you and them both, is for them to get out of your company. Generally, we put up with marginal employees far too long. You see, they don't have the courage to leave a job they dislike, and you don't have the time, the willpower, and the emotional energy to fire them. So if your borderline employees are inspired to leave by this new obsession with the customer, it's going to be a blessing for both of you. But you see, our obsession must actually go beyond customer service. Because if we just look at customer service alone in our company, we're going to basically be managing by exhortation. In other words, we're going to wind up saying, be nicer, smile more, or maybe the ultimate in management by exhortation, what's wrong with you people? It's really easy to find ourselves falling back on haranguing our employees and getting nowhere. There has to be a better way. Let me explain this idea of looking beyond customer service to actually improving your company with an illustration. Now, you've all heard of hot rods. And in the final analysis, these are just cars who've had a whole bunch of love and care and attention. Many of you have had hot rods at some point in your life. Think about the evolution of your standard, boring old car into a shining, sparkling hot rod. Maybe you were 16 years old and your dad helped you buy a car. Or you bought it with money from your part-time job and dad chipped in because, as he told you, son, this is just for transportation. You can use it to get from school to the job and then straight home. Well, nothing wrong with that. What do we call that? That's a means to an end. Maybe we started our business the same way. It was a means to an end. Just a way to make money. After all, you had to feed yourself and your family. You had to make house payments. So maybe your business started the same way your car did. A means to an end. But after a while, what happened with your boring old car? Well, you started to play with it. You started to accessorize it, to sort of tune it up. And then what happened? Well, all of a sudden, you started to really like that car. In fact, you became bound up with your vehicle. Your identity became inseparable with that of your car. You identified with it. When you drove it down the road, you felt that its condition and its appearance reflected on you. And from there, it was a short step to your obsession with that vehicle. That vehicle that originally was just a means to an end, just basic transportation, over time became transformed into a hot rod. And you found yourself obsessed with this car. You thought about it. You dreamed about it. You tinkered with it. You sat in class and thought, what would happen if I put a 4-barrel carburetor on top of that high-rise manifold? You dreamed of a full-race cam and how to acquire that cam, how to work the hours to get it, and then step by step, how you would install it. And then you dreamed of how people were going to sit up and take notice of you driving that baby down the road. Now, why were you doing all this stuff? Just because you needed transportation? Of course not. You did it because you loved it. Well, the same way with our business. We should constantly not just be focusing on customer service alone, but be focusing on building a culture and building routines that make it easy for our employees to give good customer service, and at the same time creating an environment that makes it easy for our customer to do business with us. So how do you tinker with your business hot rod? Well, the first thing I want you to do right now, remove immediately from your vocabulary a phrase that just sends cold chills up my back, the phrase, good enough. You know what I mean. Saying something like, yeah, guys, that's good enough. Customer will never know. Or the famous, it's good enough for the girls I go with. Let's hang it up. Get rid of it. I can best explain this concept of obsession and never being satisfied with what's probably an apocryphal story about Michelangelo. Now, Michelangelo, of course, was the famous artist who painted the Sistine Chapel ceiling in Italy. And this work of art is still viewed as one of the masterpieces of the ages. And it was a grueling job that took him many, many years. One day, one of his friends climbed laboriously 80 feet up the homemade scaffolding where Michelangelo lay flat on his back, poor lighting, plaster dust raining down into his face, and his friend finds Michelangelo working on the facial features of one of the characters with a tiny camel's hair brush, less than 1/8 of an inch across. And Michelangelo literally was making small, detailed changes the size of a pinhead. And his friend just cracked up. His friend laughed and he said, Michelangelo, are you nuts? Don't you understand? Nobody down on the floor 80 feet below us, nobody looking up at this fresco will ever see what you're doing here. And Michelangelo just sighed, and he said, you just don't understand. God is in the details. And so too today. The most neglected component of service in any business is lack of attention to the details. And that's why we need to become obsessed with details. In fact, I know when I spent my many years on the Homefront, anytime something would break down, I would immediately get obsessed and become the detective in my company. In fact, my employees would sigh and say, watch out, Steve's playing detective. And off I would go searching for the breakdown in the system. And I'd play the old who, what, where, why, and when, and how game in the sense of who was responsible for this? What happened? Where in the system did it happen? Why did it happen? When can we change things to keep it from happening? And finally, and maybe most important, how can we make it up to our inconvenienced customer this dropped detail? Now, if this detective search for details is done in a supportive, caring, positive environment where your employees feel a sense of self-worth, you're not going to run into a lot of obstruction and justification. And you know, something to remember, customers will focus on the darndest details to draw conclusions that no sane person should ever draw. And yet those tiny details will be what they remember when they think about your company. Jan Carlson, the president of SAS Airlines and the father of modern-day service management, said it best, our customers when they see coffee rings on the flip-down trays that let down from the back of our seats, to them, it means that we aren't maintaining our jet engines properly. Now, isn't that crazy? A customer would look at the flip-down tray and see a coffee ring and immediately draw the conclusion that, hey, these people are not maintaining their jet engines properly. So do you see why this company-wide obsession with quality and service is so important? Another very important reason we as managers and owners need commitment is that we tend to hire and keep people around us who are reflections of ourselves. And without caring, quality, loyal employees, it's going to be impossible to transform your company into a customer-focused organization. Now, when we think of commitment, we tend to think of ourselves, of our time and our philosophies, but there's another type of commitment that's equally important. Well, you know the phrase, actions speak louder than words? Well, in this case, action may mean money. You see, you're going to find it's necessary to commit company resources, company time, company money to this quest for customer service. I guarantee as you implement customer service changes, you're going to have to be willing to suffer a short-term loss for a long-term gain. In other words, you're going to have to put your money where your mouth is. That might mean paying for seminars or for outside experts to come in and train your employees. And of course, you'll have to pay your employees for their time to listen to these experts or to go to the seminars. It might be such a thing as an employee taking a half hour longer to do the job right. What message are you going to give him? Are you going to second guess him? Are you going to nitpick him and say, what's going on with profit? Why can't you make production? Or are you going to praise him for taking the time to make the cheerleader? And incidentally, are you going to praise your employee in front of the others? Excellent, excellent moment of truth for that employee. Now, not only do you need to be committed personally to customer service, you also need to be committed to your industry, your profession. Take a minute and ask yourself some searching questions. For example, how do you view yourself? Are you proud? Are you happy? Do you like what you do? Or are you kind of ashamed to be in the service business? Especially a service business where your employees and you work in people's homes. Well, I have to admit it's true. Not many young people grow up dreaming of becoming a service professional, of working on the home front. But yet, it's so important how you view yourself because your employees are going to pick up on that. And with that old HSD, that hypocritical sensing device, they'll start to view themselves in the same light that you view yourself and your company. So change your viewpoint. Become obsessed with your business. Continually tinker with it and improve your customer service. Set an example for your employees. Encourage them to help you. And you'll truly be leading the way in customer service.